everyone. I am Joyce Wady, and I am with Host in Ireland. And Garry Connolly, our founder of Host in Ireland, he and I are here today to talk a little bit about 2021. So, Garry, it's been a pretty interesting year. The last 6 months have definitely been an interesting time for the data center industry in Ireland. In conversations that you and I have had, I've heard you talk quite a bit about a fact-based narrative and why that's so important right now. So can you describe that to me? What does that mean to you, and why is it so important for the industry as a whole?
Thank you, Joyce. And it's a great question, because change is upon us at such speed right now. Trying to seek out the most timely and accurate information in such a incredibly fast-moving digital and decarbonisation global narrative is a real challenge. You and I often speak about change has lots of different reactions. Some embrace it, some run from it, or some just make up stories based on what their own feelings are. So more than ever, what we have tried to do this year is work on a fact-based narrative. And what is that? Well, it's actually a little bit like science. Let's seek out the scientific proof of anything that we say, whether it's on energy consumption, whether it's electrical carbonization, whether it's on water, whether it's on reusing heat, and all those other quite emotive touch points that surround the data, and particularly the centers that support the data infrastructure. Early in the year, we had a lot of announcements, didn't we? We had a lot of announcements in Ireland about we will be publishing a climate action plan. We will be publishing a state of the nation 8-year plan for the decarbonisation of the grid. We will be publishing a new connection policy for data centres within those parameters from the CRU. And then finally, we will be publishing budgets associated with all of that for Ireland's society between 2021 and 2030. So whilst we were in this vacuum of we will be publishing, there was no news. There was no new facts.
Right.
And therefore, a lot of what was being discussed was quite emotional. It was maybe based on legacy information or legacy reports. So all of those reports in Q4 have now been published by the Department of Enterprise, the Department of Finance, CRU, EirGrid. So they're all there for us to see. And now we're going to weave them together. Top line is society needs to decarbonize by X by 2030. The role the grid will have to play. And then the role asset classes like data centers will play in that order.
Right.
And that really then gives us a holistic view based on what everybody's woven fabric is, so that hopefully it helps us then refer to that. And maybe it helps everybody understand the value of data, the role of centers, and then the value they are both economically, job, in Ireland and from Ireland. And that's, I think, Joyce, what we mean by fact-based narrative.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And possibly one of the reasons why, and it's testimony to you and the team, I've been rather quiet these last few months, which is difficult, right, for me.
There you go. Well, and I think, one of the things that you've mentioned before too, I believe you said it in the webinar, is this is a society issue. This is too important, and anyone who's not working and marching towards that direction of decarbonizing the Irish grid and society, then they're out of sync and out of step with that. And I think that's a really important point that you've made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that by even these using and leading with our recent webinars, and even here, not getting too narrow and too deep on one asset class too early is probably the best thing we can all do, because we have a challenge, haven't we? We've got to go from 43% on the grid to 80% with an increase in electricity needed. In some respects, and of course this will be misinterpreted, but sometimes it's okay to be a little bit late or be a little bit of a laggard, whether it's in 4G, 5G technologies, or buying your new laptop. Because guess what? You can learn from other people's mistakes. The one thing that is encouraging for Ireland, and hopefully we'll get this through over the coming years, not decades, we can't delay but decades, there isn't a finite resource of renewable energy in, on, and around the island. It really is as gargantuan as between 10 and 15 times more than we can ever use.
Yeah, and that's kind of hard to get your head around sometimes, but I think it's an important point for people to keep in mind. So
I think so. So when we start to see that, and again, not data centers only one part of it, when we start to see that as a raw material, as an asset, then we can start to say, okay, so we can use it, monetize it, and it's still there and we can use it again. You know, that surely is what we call circular economy. That's what we call actually a sustainable world. And of course, we'll go through the phases of, you know, first they deny it, then they beat you up about it, then they take it, and then it was their idea all along. So we'll have to go on this journey. But I think for now, we're comfortable that all the relevant roadmaps, documents are in place for us to weave the narrative and provide what we always try and do, fact-based, timely, accurate information.
Great. So let's take maybe a step to the side, and let's talk a little bit about Host in Ireland this year. You know, when you look back over 2021, what are the things that you're most proud of, or what are the things that have been the most exciting to you that we've been working on this year?
Wow, it's been another extraordinary year, and the only predictability has been the unpredictability, hasn't it? we you know, and as you and Michelle and the team know, who love to have plans and love have quarterly advanced lovely PERT charts and Gantt charts, and we've really tried to go back to the first principles of what Host in Ireland is in many respects. Try and do the right thing in the right order with the right people for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Try and then corral the marketplace, which is not just, as you know, about data and data centers here, but the Irish internationally, and give them a personality. That's what I've enjoyed. Because I think it's often thought, and I don't think the industry globally does itself any favors, that there aren't any people behind the data or the servers or the centers. And in actual fact, there's wonderful people of all ages and all genders and all skills. So that was great fun, wasn't it? The personalization of the industry and continuing through the bar stool chats and things like that, where we don't even talk about people's business. They bring us into their, I won't say home, but for Irish people, pubs usually are their second home. So maybe it was a bit like that. And they tell us about stuff that they do outside of work. So that was a lot of fun. Really, the thing that seems to have caught the imagination, again, is outside of the center, but it's more to do with the community. And the whole concept that we were all part of creating 2-3 years ago, you included, of the DCs for Bs as a community of people working with experts. And I think that's our key thing. We're collectively only just enthusiastic beginners.
Right.
And that's a great thing to say, because when people get that off their chest, they then say, okay, yeah. So who's going to know what we're doing? So embracing with the National Biodiversity Centre and going to them as we did, you know, and said, okay, what problem can we fix? We've got the enthusiasm. We can get a few quid. We'll do it. And then they say orchards.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's all they said. Plant as many orchards as you can. And then to see it, pardon the pun, bloom.
Yeah.
Just into
planting the seeds and then seeing it bloom. If we're going to bloom the analogy far.
And I won't say it's out of control, because I don't think something like that can ever be out of control. We've had such challenges of success associated with, we've bought all the orchards in Ireland. We can't get any more. We've got more people wanting the orchards to buy and to pledge than we possibly can. And then obviously the logistics of rolling them out in 32 counties over 2 months or 3 months. You'd have to say there's going to be a great chapter in the book.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, it's a great chapter. And we don't even talk about data centers. They're not even in data centers. So the community word, and I know we were all part of the selection of what we call it, orchards in the community is way more than orchards in the community, if that makes any sense. It's
the definition of community has expanded to be so much more than what we thought it was going to be.
I think so. I think the orchards are like just the thing that has connected people who design, build, operate a thing called a data center to local schools in Carlow, or to remote nursing homes where maybe people's parents passed away. And now what we're finding, which is even better, which will be ultimately the dividend, the unintended consequence maybe, is we now have people from those recipients coming back to us with ideas.
Yeah, which is great. Which is great. Yeah.
Because my experience tells me is that people work with passion, and sometimes we lose the passion and the work. Whereas people who do tidy towns and clean the verges and they're doing that for a passion.
Yeah.
So if they come to us with ideas, which they're starting to come to Tanya now with, you can sort of see that it probably will last a lot longer than just us coming up with an idea. So that's fun. That's fun. So I'd say between those two, the personalization of the industry, the redefinition of community, and obviously genuinely doing some good for the little bee fellas.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I don't think any of us see ourselves ever as champions of biodiversity. And now Michelle goes out late at night in the summer, and if anyone's cutting their grass, she goes balubas.
We all started thinking about cutting our grass in a very different way this year. That is for sure.
I know. And yet I read poetry here from Yeats, and he talks about the summer has arrived when I smell the grass, cut grass in my nose. So we're going to have to get rid of all of that stuff now. It's all about letting the grass grow and the meadows grow, and the bees need to be helped.
Great. So then just really quick to kind of wrap things up, what are you expecting from Host in Ireland, or what should we expect from Host in Ireland in 2022?
If you had asked me that question this time last year, and what I would have said and what we delivered would have been totally separate, because we're still in this stage where I might have said it already, the only thing predictable is the unpredictability. We will continue to build a community of like-minded people that are trying to identify problems either larger in society that we can action and affect, not just talk about. The bees, the biodiversity, helping out people in communities, but not just sort of adding value via the brands that the companies, that the people in the community represent, but the actual people themselves. So I think that will be a great part of next year as well. We also are hopeful that we can go back out and do what we most enjoy, which is connecting the community.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you and I speak regularly, and we've missed the equivalent of the water cooler moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't like to admit it, but I've missed listening to people explain baseball to me. You know, it's the bit of horse racing or whatever it might be. Actually, it's that diversity of thought that gets you to think, oh, that's interesting. And whereas, so I think we'll do what we did this year. Of course, we're bigger now. My goodness, we've year on year during COVID, we've doubled the size of the initiative.
Right. In
the 2 years, we've gone from 30 now to, gone up 40%. So there's a real diversity of different types of partners. Whereas we started off with the co-location companies, then it's like an onion. Then there's another layer of main contractors. Then we had another layer of manufacturers, another layer of OEMs, another layer of professional services. So what's wonderful is the little bit of unknown. And you know me, I like having that unknown as well.
Absolutely.
I don't really know where it'll all go, but I do know one thing is that we know, don't we, that we're the bookbinders or the storytellers, and to get the best out of next year will need us to be told stories by the partners,
Yeah.
or not just stories, initiatives, what's driving the market. And we seem to be quite good at putting a point on it.
Yeah.
And I think by doing that for us, I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say we can never be wrong, because we can, but we can never be too far away from what the market is firsthand experiencing.
True.
So I think our pillars obviously will be talent, it'll be biodiversity, it'll be an industry of substance, it'll be personalization. And then you just don't know, when we come back on this call next year, we'll say, guess what? That there that we didn't see coming was the best thing.
Best thing that we did. Yeah.
That's the best thing that we did. And I think that's the best. That's just the best, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's actually a perfect note to end this on. So thank you for taking a few moments and sharing some of your thoughts, because I think, you know, it's good to have these conversations and do a little looking back and do a little looking forward and see where we go.
Yeah. You know, as they say about a broken clock, even a broken clock is right a couple of times a day. And I thank you, Joyce. Thank you for all your efforts. Thank you for putting up with me.
Yeah, there you go. There
you know, and sorry for my really bad American accents, but I'm trying.
We'll practice a little more. We'll practice.
We will.
So.
Thanks a million,
right.
Joyce.
Thanks, Garry.